All right, kids, look at these lyrics. And if you heard, early one evening I was roaming around, I was feeling kind of mean, I shot a deputy down, would you find that offensive? Should we ban this kind of song? Subscribers and regular viewers, would you let your kids listen to this kind of song? What if those lyrics came from the mouth of a rapper? What if that rapper switches the country in a move that we should call the Jelly Roll from here on out? Not to overlook Post Malone, but his name will for sure become synonymous with Culture Vulture once he changes to Dirty Blues or something. Anyways, does this kind of song pose a danger to society? I'll tell you what song these lyrics come from in a minute, but first.
We do not listen to classical music enough in the West. It's time for us to stop listening to rap music and this degenerate hip-hop stuff and go back to the music that built our civilization. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Charlie Kirk. We can't speak ill of the dead, but he can say whatever sick he wanted to in life. Kirk was asked, as a Christian, what music and media would you allow into your home in a culture that's so focused on immorality rather than the traditional principles that we stand by, she added. And Charlie made it a point to dog whistle hip hop without rhythm, of course. He also established that he's into the likes of Haydn, Mozart, and Bach, which answers a question for me personally. See, using the rap music leads to or causes or exasperates crime in black neighborhoods logic, what did enslavers and redliners and war on crimers listen to before white supremacy? Classical? With that said, Kirk did allow his family to listen to certain secular music too.
We only allow classical music, praise music, or a very couple exception old songs. So my daughter loves Dolly Parton, so we play Jolene. My son loves It's a Man's World by James Brown with Pavarotti. Great song to raise a son on, by the way.
Jolene, which is about infidelity and can't be based on a true story because nobody's cheating on Dolly Parton. Nobody's taking this woman's man. Then there's It's a Man's World by James Brown. Charlie must be separating the art from the artist with this ballad that Rolling Stone described as biblically chauvinistic, and I'm sure he doesn't mind that either. Now,
well, early one evening I was rolling around, I was feeling kind of mean, I shot the deputy down.
that was Bad Man's Blunder, a song that wasn't made within the last 10 years by three white dudes who look like they're in middle management at a locally owned mattress store playing guitars and not backing the blue, called the Kingston Trio. The social experiment that I started this episode with is a sample of one conducted by Carrie Freed, a psychology professor at Winona State University in Minnesota. She's who originally asked these questions that I posed. Freed admitted that growing up, there was always songs about killers and glamorizing them, even creepy songs about people who killed sheriffs and sheriff deputies, and no one thought anything of it. It was just a song, quote, why, as a kid, did no one object to me listening to this song? She's aware of the answer to what might have been a rhetorical question because her social experiment gave it to her. When subjects thought Bad Man's Blunder was a rap song, or when they associated it with a black artist, they were significantly more likely to say it posed a danger. If you said it was a country song or they were associated with a white artist, by and large, people didn't have a problem with it. Well, today we're going to talk about hip hop having a bad rap. Again. There was this TikTok a while ago where someone asked what topic could you do a 1-hour speech about after waking up or with little to no prep, that I later saw on Instagram way after it was uploaded on that clock app like an unk normally would, and hip hop and homicide has to be that for me. I've made 5 videos about this subject so far, and you're watching the 6th and hopefully final one. I'm in my old man yells at cloud hanging over black culture era right now. Speaking of, after one of my previous hip hop and homicide episodes, a subscriber to this channel told me that I remind her of Dick Gregory while reminding me of this clip.
I'm born 1932. You go by the record we was listening called Stack of Leaves. This is a song where a dude blew a cat away over a Stetson hat.
Staggily, oh, staggily, please don't take my life.
And people was dancing to it. Blow, Stack of Leaves.
Dick Gregory will go on to mention dirty blues, a genre of music that I've brought up in the past, and I would take this opportunity to play It's Tight Like That by Clara Smith and Put It Right Here or Keep It Out There by Bessie Smith, recorded in the early 1900s America, by the way, in order to show and prove that explicit content is nothing new and is a reflection of society, not a hindrance to it. But I've already done something similar, and merely naming those songs tells you what you need to know. I would try to diagnose Middle America with Mean World Syndrome. However, I've already covered cognitive bias. Until I saw this.
Here's the thing. Look at our media. Look at rap. Look at what we're glorifying.
Right.
We're glorifying violence.
Who's we? Wait, who's we? Who's we? Who's
the black community.
Who controls the
black community.
Who controls the distribution of these sources of media?
And who takes it in? And who takes it in?
Listen, if you're okay, so let me put it in this context.
What that black conservative didn't want to admit was white people control the distribution of music in this country. Radio, records, and streaming. White people are also consumers of hip hop. Who hasn't listened to rap music? Something that I want you to keep in mind. When I've asked people, in person and online, how they can possibly not kill anybody in spite of listening to rap music themselves, they've told me, it's because I use common sense, I was raised right, I'm not like that, and why aren't they citing a lack of common sense, not being raised right, or being like that, instead of unfairly blaming rap music for society's violence? So, I don't want to repeat myself. Shouldn't have to when there's 80 minutes of me going into detail about hip hop history, comparing and contrasting rap music to other explicit media, reviewing the love affair that these United States have with true crime, criminals, killers, gangsters, and outlaws. Then there's stats and studies that the ops pretend to read. Also, conspiracy theories, along with recent news that almost murks my argument. This is a compilation episode, sure. Watch those other videos of mine also, in full, as part of the playlist that I created. But yeah, everything that I have there will be here. And I'll see you back here in a minute. Don't check the time in the bottom left of the thumbnail.
We're not against rap. We're not against rappers. But we are against those thugs who disgrace our community, our women, who disgrace our culture, and who have absolutely nothing of redemptive value to offer except the legacy of violence and sexual assault and foul language.
Hip hop has done more damage to black and brown people than racism in the last 10 years. When you find the youngster, a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx or a black kid from Harlem, who has succeeded in life other than being the 1/10 of 1% that make it in the music business, that's been a success in life, walking around with his pants around his ass.
They don't seem to see any connection between the kind of music which they sell for profit and the kinds of problems we have in American society.
There was a beat girl and graffiti artist named Cindy Campbell who decided to throw an end of summer party in order to earn extra money for school clothes. Her older brother, Clive, would play the music because people around the way knew him as DJ Kool Herc. Their event, which took place in the recreation room of their apartment building at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the West Bronx, would come to be known widely as the birth of hip hop. The date was August 11th, 1973. There's evidence of black people rapping before the 70s, but early on, rap music was mostly about the DJ, like DJ Kool Herc, who I already mentioned, Grandmaster Flash, and Africa Bambaataa. They innovated how to use turntables and were instrumental in getting people together with block parties. Then there was the master of ceremony, the MC. They would be at parties, on stage, with a mic, encouraging people to dance, giving shout outs, and making announcements. Rhyming evolved from that over time to what we now know as rapping. Real quick, before I continue, the term hip hop was coined by one of hip hop's early pioneers, an MC and a member of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Robert Keith Cowboy Wiggins, in 1978. No relation, though. Speaking of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, in 1982, Sugar Hill Records produced The Message by Melly Mel and the late great Duke Booty. While the vast majority of rap music that came before this featured beat breaks from James Brown songs, reggae, and dancehall tracks, with some disco influence in order to keep the party going and have a good time, The Message was and is rhythm and poetry's reflection on inner city blues. Those living for the city. Seems like it was the first song of its kind. Gun crime and violence in black communities was already a thing before Schoolie D, Ice-T, and NWA pretty much invented gangster rap in the mid to late 80s. It was also a problem before former President Ronald Reagan remixed the war on drugs. Actually, black on black crime was a problem before Richard Nixon declared drug abuse public enemy number one on June 17, 1971. We know this because gun crime and violence must have already been such a huge problem in Chicago that the term black on black crime was perhaps first put in print to describe what was going on in August 19, 1970. Hey, if you're keeping score at home, then you already noticed that black on black crime, the violence, along with the term used to describe it, were already things before Cindy and Clive Campbell decided to even throw their back to school jam, which should mean rap music is not the cause of crime and violence in black communities. It isn't. We could end the story right there. However,
I've been wanting to make this video for a while. I don't know why I haven't. But the idea that rap music can somehow be the primary cause of crime and violence makes no sense to me. One, because when you say something is a cause of something else, there's a presumption of chronology. And what do I mean by that? You're basically stating that this existed before and independently of that. So when you take that alone into account, the original claim doesn't make any sense. Because it's not like Atlanta was all sunshine and rainbows and then 21 Savage came out and said, I'm gonna wet your mama house and wet your grandma house and keep shooting. And then all of a sudden Atlanta started getting dangerous. Like that's not how things work. So let's say you didn't mean to say cause, but rather exacerbate. So rap and drill music makes these problems like violence and crime worse. That's your new claim. Okay, now you're starting to eat. I still got a rebuttal for you though. Let's talk about what art means fundamentally. The general definition, but art is essentially, I'm gonna use 4 E's here. The expression of environment, emotions, and experiences. So if you want artists to remove violence out of their expression, you have to remove the violence out of their environment, emotion, and you see how I'm getting here? Art is a mirror and it's reflecting a violent city. People walk up to the mirror, see its reflection, and then some may walk away being more violent. So you could turn the mirror to prevent that from happening and show something else. But what about the violence still happening over here? So should we just turn the mirror or should we fix what it's actually reflecting?
this video was sent to me. 250 rappers died in 2021. Rap Rewind 2021. And there's so many others like it. This one was made in November of 2022. And if anyone takes it as strictly being about rappers dying to violence, they must not recognize that DMX is on the thumbnail. He died of a drug overdose a few years ago at the age of 50. This video operates more like an in memoriam segment, highlighting the lesser known rappers who died that didn't make the news. It also contains stats displaying how those 250 rappers mentioned in the video died. 200 due to gun violence. That's a lot. And before I continue, more telling than the video itself was the essay in the description below it. It says, hip hop has two phases, old school and new school, each of which give off a different vibe. Old school hip hop has music based prevalently on African American culture. Artists such as Tupac, Biggie Smalls, and Eazy-E often rap about the struggles of growing up and the hard work they put in to get where they are today. Now, I'm going to forgive this dude, whoever he is, for not explaining when this old school, new school era occurred. Would have liked to see some years, but what did he say about Tupac? I get around. How do you want it, Tupac? This Tupac?
My fofo make sure all y'all kids don't grow.
He told Jay-Z to die slow once upon a time. And Biggie, give me the loot, kick in the door, 10 crack commandments, Biggie? Man, and Eazy-E has songs called F the Police and Merry Mother Effing Christmas. This shows that perceptions of hip hop, like crime, does not meet reality. I really don't have a problem with this video in and of itself, but no amount of Dear Mamas, Brenda's Got a Babies, Keep Your Heads Ups, Juicies, and Sky is the Limit make their music or message go from negative to positive. Anyways, the narrator of this video will go on to say, growing up listening to Eminem has caused me to fall in love with him as an artist. He introduced me to hip hop, and that's suspicious. That's weird. There's this idea that black culture could also be blamed for the murder rate among black people, and it goes a little something like this. Liberal policies in the welfare state led to fathers abandoning their families, which in turn leads to babies being born out of wedlock, therefore, more violence. And it's okay to admit that absent fatherhood became more of an issue after the 60s, whether or not it was an intentional or unintentional consequence of social programs. Because I'm glad people are admitting that poverty was a factor in absent fatherhood. That's a case then and now. White women are currently the fastest growing demographic to have babies born out of wedlock. And although their rate isn't near that of Hispanic women or black women, for that matter, based on its current rate trajectory, it will be in a few generations. What policy led to this? Are these white women or even Hispanic women influenced by black culture? Or are the markers for absent fatherhood not race or culture, but poverty and a lack of resources, healthcare, and education, which are also features of poverty. Can't stress that enough. It's like the hook to this song of mine. I'm going to repeat it till it's catchy. Anyways, we've talked about this. Studies show that when you control for concentrated poverty in segregated neighborhoods, the disparities in violent crime between black and white communities almost disappear. So blaming absent fatherhood, again, a symptom of poverty, for violent crime, which is also a symptom of poverty, is like somebody coughing because they have a cold and someone looking at them and saying, might be because of that runny nose of yours. You know what? In 2019, America's pre-pandemic murder rate was 5.0 per 100,000 people. It peaked somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s, depending on your source, yet was 5.0 in 1960. So the murder rate both increased and decreased while rap existed. I'm going to act like I didn't just say that. The comment section will too. Just to keep going and say, even with that, let's go back to my timeline and look at some case studies from around the country in order for me to prove my point. In 2012, a record low 231 California black youth were locked up in state correctional facilities compared to over 2,000 in the mid-1990s and 800 in 1959, the first year numbers were kept. Quote, status crime policing of black youth reflected in curfew, loitering, and other non-criminal stops also had fallen to record lows. Little solid evidence connects policies to reduce crime, except maybe for the correlation with increased college enrollment. Maybe. Going from 1959 to the 40s, there was a World War then, so I'll skip that. In New Orleans during the early 1920s, African Americans were 2/3 of homicide victims, 86% of whom died at the hands of other African Americans. Yet prosecutors secured convictions in only 6% of African American intraracial homicide cases per the study Less Crime, More Punishment, Violence, Race, and Criminal Justice in Early 20th Century America. From the 1920s to the 10s, there was a World War that decade too, so we'll skip that. Even so, what soundtrack were white supremacists listening to during the Red Summer of 1919? Moving on, in Racial Integrity and Other Features of the Negro Problem, A.H. Shannon said, quote, while conditions in Denver bear a strong resemblance to those in some of the southern cities, there is a marked difference in the grade of crimes committed. From the 1st of May to the 1st of September, 1906, there were 10 killings in Denver. 5 of these, including the murder in cold blood of 2 police officers killed in the discharge of their duty, were the work of Negroes. 1 Negro was killed by a white man who was acquitted because he acted in self-defense. So that we have 4% of the population committing 50% and involved in 60% of all killings during this period. 10 Negroes and 11 whites were involved. Violence among black people and in black communities was a problem at the turn of the 20th century, well before rap, well before what's perceived to be contemporary black culture, well before the welfare state, well before absent fatherhood. The only thing that remains constant from now until then is black people living in concentrated poverty in segregated neighborhoods. With all of that said, if the hip hop movement never happened, black people's intraracial murder rate would still be between 88% and 93% year to year. If we took away rap, the dangerous material conditions that create and bring about violence would remain. Furthermore, when those who claim that black people don't do or say anything about black on black crime, I automatically point to rap music to disprove that nonsense. Songs like Self-Destruction and Same Game dropped when I was a little boy. These were the first stop the violence movements that I ever knew of. Kind of seems like there aren't tracks like this anymore, but they're out there though, yet they haven't reached the mainstream, which is an issue in and of itself. I don't know if this is a supply issue or a demand issue, but we could make an entire episode about the idea that mostly white record executives didn't want to sell positivity.
So what started to happen was when Public Enemy, and I remember this vividly, my album was called Knowledge is King. It was going into a whole spiritual space about knowledge and being intelligent. KRS-One was saying Jesus was black. And Public Enemy was saying it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. That's all 88, 89, and by the time we got to 90, the powers that be said this black conscious movement is moving without radio play. is moving completely underground, and there's an underground subculture of positive, pro-black, intelligent people. We cannot have this movement happening. So the unfortunate part for gangster, quote-unquote gangster rap was they started to handpick what they were going to play. And this is the part that you know. They went from not playing rap because they said it was too edgy and not melodic enough to playing the most profane rap and beeping the curses out. That's how bad they wanted to get that content on the radio.
In 1991, we don't know exactly when, a meeting took place on the outskirts of Los Angeles. We don't really know. We're not sure where. And it was attended by a man I don't know who. We'll call him Stefan. Anyways, this place had everything. 25 to 30 people, decision makers, NDA agreements, guns drawn, regret. After more than 20 years, Stefan decided to tell the world about whatever it was which made up the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation. Yeah, on Tuesday, April 24th, 2012, an anonymous letter landed in a blogger's mailbox, Ivan, and he posted it on hiphopisred.com, and the urban legend grew from there. Because that's all this is. It's an urban legend. By definition, a modern story of obscure origin and with little or no supporting evidence, and has elements of horror. But too many people have taken this as proof that the CIA colluded with music executives to ravage black communities, using hip hop to promote violence to incorrigible young minds who would, in turn, commit crime and get sent to private prisons that the record industry executives at this secret meeting will invest in for profit. This is bigger than the music business. The villain of the story, who isn't really the villain because Stefan, who kept this to himself for 2 decades and didn't name names, might be the enemy, said. Of course, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe any of this. However, when all else fails, blame hip hop and rappers. Even for stuff that you did before hip hop was even a thing.
Snoop's like, I don't smoke pot. You need to watch out. I care about my family because his kids are getting screwed up by it. It creates schizophrenia. I know a bunch of people personally became schizophrenic on marijuana. I rarely smoke pot. I literally, like once a year with Joe Rogan on a show or something, I'll smoke it to see what it does. Can't even get out of my chair for hours. One hit off that stuff. Back when I was in high school, I wasn't a big pot guy, but I'd smoke it here and there. Didn't do any of that.
Alex Jones on his former show, InfoWars, which is probably being passed out like candy to Sandy Hook families right now, admitting that he used to smoke weed in high school, still does so with Joe Rogan, famously not a rapper, then claiming that weed is 30 times stronger than it used to be and causes dementia. So, is this his way of telling us that he has dementia? Real quick, later on in that clip he said, I told you it was CIA, referring to what he calls leftist globalists destroying black communities. Let me just show you a bunch of documents, articles, and congressional records before reading only the headlines of articles that he definitely didn't even skim through. There ain't no creases or folds near the staples, no highlights or underlines, no proof. What we ain't gonna do is try to myth bust this letter. I mean, why would we? Would y'all spend time debunking the existence of Candyman? Ha! I bet not say that 4 more times. Honestly, you might be let down by the ending of this thing, just like Candyman, damn it. So, Alex Jones was responding to an interview between Bill Maher and Ice Cube, where O'Shea said this.
Who benefits and profits off our bickering and our division? You know, it's like follow the money. I don't know their names. Same people who own the labels own the prisons. So,
literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons.
Ice Cube is clearly in the music industry. He can't name the people he's talking about, and he used to write for other rappers, including Eazy-E in the late 80s and early 90s. Did Cube write this letter? During this interview with Bill Maher, O'Shea will go on to say that the higher ups in the music industry that have direct knowledge that the CIA was using gangster rap to radicalize young black people would gatekeep the kind of records that will get played on the radio, then manipulate how positive, uplifting songs were deferred for murder music. They would also drop lines for rappers to use in order to promote violence. Not him though, not Ice Cube. Executives didn't tell Ice Cube what to say or do. We'll get back to him later. But this is a sentiment stated by the likes of Too Short, who made it known to NPR that he wasn't a pawn. He wasn't invited to the board meetings. He can't push the agenda in hip hop music back to where positive songs are what we like more. Short Dog also said that Barry Weiss at Jive Records told him that Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, and Death Row Records were doing his style better than him. And if he wanted to move more records, he's got to get even dirtier, which is saying something. You know how many times you gotta say coochie to out too short, too short? He then claimed he wanted to make a positive album to counteract his X-rated work, which he thought was a good idea, but was prevented from doing so. Compare that to what a Joe Budden said.
In my experience with him, I've never heard them tell somebody to push a drug image. I've never heard it. Now, I've seen them say, yo, go fake a relationship. I've seen them say, I've seen some of the fake fuck shit that niggas, I've seen them say fake some beef. I've never heard Lior or his people say, yo, go fake the drug habit.
That's 3 rappers saying that while the C-suite people leading their record label tried to influence image and message, telling them, in this case, Ice Cube, Too Short, and Joe Budden, it didn't apply to those rappers. But yes, signing rappers who are wild and gatekeeping records, as I alluded to earlier, could be part of what the CIA would have aimed to do during that secret meeting if it happened. So Joe Budden there was preparing to talk to Dame Dash about whether or not a certain executive was and is a culture vulture. And that executive is Lior Cohen. Joe Budden did not agree that Lior was a culture vulture. Budden is biased towards Lior, according to Budden. Lior Cohen is Dracula, a vampire. I didn't add fangs to this or nothing. He also happens to be Jewish, and oh my gosh, I only bring that up because ever since Norman Lear, Black communities have been wary of Jewish people staking claim to Black art, image, and IP. Lior Cohen was the head of Def Jam, then he was at Warner Music Group, and may still be YouTube's head of music. Here's Lior in his own words.
They seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup, and
it's the most dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying
it's opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
Before I continue, I came across an article with the headline, "Former CIA agent admits agency created gangster rap to fill private prisons by glamorizing criminality." Fact checked by the People's Voice community, so you know it's good. It's the kind of thing that Alex Jones would have an intern print just to show an overhead view of this first page on his desk, and then throw each and every paper away. It reads, John Homston, a retired CIA agent, admitted in June of 2022 on national Russian television that the CIA was behind the creation of gangster rap in the late 80s and 90s in order to glamorize criminal behavior and fill private prisons. Furthermore, the government at the time spent big money, serious money, on this covert operation designed to further division and corrupt the American youth to nihilist, anti-establishment, and anti-American ideologies. Famous hip-hop lyrics of the legendary hip-hop outfit NWA were even scripted by a team of psychologists and war propagandists inside the CIA. According to the former agent, F the police and when I'm called off, I got a sawed off, squeeze the trigger and bodies are hauled off. I apologize for my lack of flow. But you know who said that? Ice Cube. For what it's worth, probably nothing, the article also said that Lior Cohen is a CIA asset. Anyways, when Alex Jones posted his CIA race war program behind radicalization of blacks via gangster rap, Ice Cube response video on Twitter, this user retweeted it and said, I believe Ice Cube likely has direct knowledge of the secret meeting. It should be noted that Cube's group was active between 1987 and 1991 per Wikipedia, which leaves speculation that either the NWA group was directly involved in the matter or were at least a model that all other groups were to mimic, being the group was directly blamed for the rising crime rate by the federal government at the height of the group's career. There's a video on YouTube of Crazy Bone of Bone Thugs and Harmony reading this letter while speaking to Dame Dash, by the way. So, when someone on Twitter added, unfortunately, music did play a part with the crack being pumped into our Black and Latino neighborhoods, O'Shea said, BS. Crack was in the neighborhoods a decade before gangsta rap. In the 70s, they called it freebase. So it was heroin, weed, mollies, gangbanging, drive-bys, pimping, and hoeing, dropping out of school, young girls getting pregnant, cussing, and using the word. It was all here before NWA. Yeah. For an example of what can be seen and heard in 1970s, 1980s New York, there's The Message. I'm not even gonna rap Melly Mel's lyrics. My flow wouldn't do it justice. This is just the first verse. Melly Mel and the late Duke Booty would go on to talk about crime, being poor, cycles of vengeance, violence, unemployment, drug use, all the while telling us, don't push me cause I'm close to the edge. What do people who don't appreciate black music think that means? Poverty and segregation did that. Ice Cube denies being a part of any secret meeting. And based on his role, we should look into Jerry Heller at this point. Heller was born in Cleveland. He, like Cohen, is In 1987, in his mid-40s, he met Eric Eazy-E Wright. Heller was at that time sleeping on his parents' couch and sniffing around for a hook back into the game. According to this article from Grantland, Heller said, I was older than the members of NWA. I'd grown up during the Berkeley period, the Panthers and the Diggers. Immediately, I knew what it was. Right from that very first time I heard Boys in the Hood, I just knew that somehow I was in the right place at the right time. Heller is claiming to at least recognize black social movements, and Boys in the Hood by NWA to him is like Fight the Power by Public Enemy. Similarly, Jimmy Iovine of Interscope says, I come from a background of where artists are allowed to create anything they want to create. That was my history. That's all I knew. That's a very complex issue. But if that's Dre and Snoop's truth, for example, what am I supposed to do? And Leo Cohen claims that he doesn't give up on people, but he has mouths to feed. Death, murder, and mayhem sells in America. I mean, we really like Halloween. True crime as a genre is hot. The US wants violence. See my previous videos where I mentioned we love crime so much that an entire genre was created to give us what we want. True crime. A YouGov survey found that nearly half of Americans say they enjoy true crime content, and a third consume it at least once a week. That includes a quarter who say they consume it multiple times per week. Only 30% say they never consume true crime content. The survey finds 52% of Americans say they consume true crime content through TV shows, which ranks first, followed by films, books, online videos, podcasts, and online articles and forums. I probably don't need to tell you that women are into true crime more than men. Crime is clearly a source of entertainment, bringing comfort and care to millions. But somehow, some way, America tells me that one form of entertainment, in particular, creates crime.
Pop me a seal, bitch, I'm getting loose. She made a deal, swerve up in the coupe. Smoking that kill, she came from the west. He busting down guards, rolling a booth.
That was, actually, I'll let his dad explain.
I got a son. He raps. His rap name is Tut Tarantino. If you ever listen to some of his raps, I'm like, oh my God, where does this come from, son? You grew up in a gated community your whole life.
You know how rappers snitch on themselves, right? Well, I want the parents to expose their kids. More of this, please. But I want to hear what these rappers' real names are. I bet it'll sound like that sketch from Key and Peele where football players are introducing themselves for the East-West College Bowl.
Javarius Smith King, Merrimack College.
Kyle Royal, Smoochie Wallace, University of Miami.
Anyways, that was Hall of Famer, former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, Michael Irvin, father of Elijah Irvin, aka Tut Tarantino. The playmaker said something similar to this 4 years ago on the Dan Patrick Show, so Tut has been at this for a while now.
If someone had told me that I was going to give up sex for the rest of my life when I first met Lyle, I would have died laughing. I would have never in a million years pictured that that would be a facet of my life where I'd say, oh, well, don't care if I ever do that again. But it happened so slowly through being friends and then being, alone, not having a boyfriend or anything, and being close to Lyle, and then growing to love him.
That was Anna Erickson, Finnish pop star and model who was married to Lyle Hernandez. Lyle and his brother Eric were convicted for killing their parents in Beverly Hills. They said they murdered their folks due to fear. They accused their father of abusing them and their mother of enabling this behavior and being complicit with it. Others say this criminal act was because of money. Lyle and Eric went on spending sprees after shooting their parents to death. Here they are at a Knicks game. Either way, they were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The first trial was televised, yet led to a hung jury. While in jail, waiting for the second trial, the Menendez brothers received hundreds of letters from women in an LA County jail. You may be noticing that I'm not going into details about the Menendez brothers. That's because I don't have to. There are so many books, TV shows, documentaries, pop culture references, and movies about them, I don't have to say much. You already know. This may be the case for every example I provide here on out. And before I continue, did Court TV promote the Menendez brothers, intentionally or not? Furthermore, do movies glorify violence and crime and romanticize criminals too? Or is that just rap? Because that's what the casting director and film director were doing when Zac Efron was chosen to play Ted Bundy in the movie Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, right? Sexiness. And that's just one movie about Ted Bundy alone. There's enough for Screen Rant to make a movie ranking, worst to best, top 10 list about him. This doesn't mean that Hollywood has influenced the serial killers that have come along since then. Would they be due in part to the narrative across many mediums that Bundy is so smart, cunning, leading women to feel scared yet safe around him?
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, oh no, he's gonna get me next.
But yet you're fascinated by him.
Very, very. Every night when I go to bed, I just, I get very scared. I shut my door and lock him,
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody.
None of this takes away from the fact that millions cheered when Bundy was convicted for his crimes and executed for them, which is another symptom of the problem I'm describing, by the way. People watching the electric chair and lethal injections. People celebrated when Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in jail, but any cannibal that came after Dahmer, is it because of him and how he and his murders were covered? There's 5 films about him. There were more celebrity criminals before then whose fame grew after their time. Let's take things back to the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn and starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway in the title roles, which revived interest in Bonnie and Clyde from the Great Depression and glamorized them with a romantic aura. In his book, Go Down Together, The True Untold Story of Bonnie and Clyde, Jeff Gwynne said, John Dillinger had matinee idol good looks and Pretty Boy Floyd had the best possible nickname. But the Joplin photos introduced new criminal superstars with the most titillating trademark of all, illicit sex. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker were wild and young and undoubtedly slept together. Bonnie and Clyde were so famous, not just infamous, that when they were killed by the posse near Gibbsland, Louisiana, locals wanted to collect hair and clothes samples from them to be sold as souvenirs. Some dude tried to cut Clyde's trigger finger off. Here it is as depicted in the 2019 movie, The Highwaymen. And this is an excerpt from The Lives and Times of Bonnie and Clyde by E.R. Milner. Arriving at the scene, the coroner reported, quote, nearly everyone had begun collecting souvenirs such as shell casings, slivers of glass from the shattered car windows, and bloody pieces of clothing from the garments of Bonnie and Clyde. One eager man had opened his pocket knife and was reaching into the car to cut off Clyde's left ear. The gun-riddled car, with 112 holes, was towed to the furniture store/funeral parlor. Likewise, Ma Barker, from the Prohibition era, when authorities surrounded and raided a home that they thought was headquartered for a gang where it was believed that she was a criminal mastermind, it's rumored that neighbors came outside to watch and to listen, to make a picnic out of it. I can go on and on about our love affair with crime during the Great Depression and Prohibition. However, we clearly had a thing for criminals even before the 20th century. Ron Hansen, author of The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, said, quote, he's the Elvis Presley of the 19th century, referring to the legendary outlaw. He became famous before his death because of the novels that were being written about him. Jesse James was so famous for robbing banks and trains that when a nobody named Robert Ford, who was also a fanboy of his, shot and unarmed Jesse James, 34 years old at the time, from behind on April 3rd, 1882, he became famous himself. He went around flashing his reward money into everything. Then, in early June of that year, a man by the name of Ed O'Kelly shot and killed Ford with a shotgun. In prison, O'Kelly, the man who took the last breath from James's killer, received fan mail. It came from around the country and across oceans. The warden and other inmates were astonished at his celebrity. There's museums and historic sites dedicated to Jesse James's life, festivals and reenactments in his honor. Meanwhile, Billy the Kid, real name Henry McCarty, allegedly shot and killed anywhere from 7 to 24 men, depending on the source, before he was gunned down at the age of 21. Well, the progenal phototype picture of him, which is 2 by 3 inches, was bought at an auction for $2.3 million by conservative businessman William Koch. And this has nothing to do with nothing. But after Butch Cassidy was gunned down, there was rumors that he survived. False sightings, and people even claimed to be him, just like black people did and still do with Tupac. By the way, the murdering, gunfighting, gangbanging, bank and stagecoach robbing fugitive criminals. What music were they listening to in order to make them commit these crimes? I still don't know how this works. But I know that Birth of a Nation, a movie, brought back the Klan in the early 1900s, along with KKK-style lynching and terrorizing. That isn't to undermine the effect that music has on our hearts, souls, minds, thoughts, our feelings, and experiences. I've been in clubs when a Lil Jon song came on. I know what time it is. And we can have a discussion about why it seems like rappers need to be a certain way in order to sell records, and the ways in which executives and promoters and radio stations play in allowing for death and destruction to go over the airwaves in this one genre of music more than others. However, and I can't stress this enough, serial killers didn't become celebrities due to hip hop, and rappers don't become serial killers. Drop a beat under these true crime TV shows, movies, documentaries, and podcasts and see if they suddenly promote, glorify, and glamorize crime. We love this stuff. Don't know why some of y'all don't love Tupac. I mean, he's got a mugshot and it's been almost 30 years since he died. His legend should grow in middle America. I wonder why it hasn't. But this is the population of people who Tut Tarantino is trying to sell records to. As far as I'm concerned, he's playing a role, a character, like actors in movies and TV shows. But as you've seen today, live by the gun, die by the gun. Instead of blaming rap music for the untimely loss of life from the likes of King Von and Young Dolph, could we at least examine the real lives they were leading? What's the point of having a problem with rappers gun-toting in pictures and in music videos, but not when Congress does it? What's the difference? Representative Byron Donalds can't write rhymes, so he gets a pass? Whack. I mean, at least Bonnie wrote poems. The representative doesn't talk about shooting people? Yes, he does. I'd do anything to protect my family, and he's from a stand your ground state, unless he is faking it like some rappers do. I learned that King Von might have been a killer. Quando Rondo too. Can you tell that I don't know who those people were/are? And I can go into detail about criminal history and legal issues of other rappers, seeing how YouTube is recommending these kinds of videos to me now. Or Young Dolph and Nipsey Hussle being gunned down in the midst of giving back to the community, or PNB Rocks and Pop Smoke's murders being linked to robberies after their locations were exposed on social media. But I won't, because the common thread among all of them is that they were black rappers. Well, and what Pop Smoke's mother said after his death. Because of gun violence destroys families. It must stop. Y'all know gun violence, America. The same fate that John Lennon, Marvin Gaye, and Selena met. I gotta say that I can't help but notice the number of subscribers the channels that these videos are featured on have. In fact, look at which videos are most popular on Rap Zone and Hip Hop Daily. Danger, destruction, and death. Here's another one, leaving a comment telling Rap Zone that they stole their thumbnail idea from them. Turns out, it's a white guy. Hey, are white people making money off of black bodies by showing violence? On this channel alone, Thang 3000, there are only 3 videos, one of which was 3 million views as of me writing this. That video is entitled, All Rappers That Died 1995 to 2022. Isn't that what rappers do? Give the people what they want? They sell violence. Whether or not they're about that life. Seems like there's a market for it in this country. See American history. And my video where I make that clear. Why are they gun-toting in the first place? This is America. The point is, a lot of rappers have died since the pandemic. Too many. However, Was this because of music, rhythm and poetry, beats and rhymes, when there was a raging disease killing millions of people, lockdowns, a massive distrust of law enforcement, growing inequity, financial uncertainty, and a proliferation of guns being sold? And we're talking about drill rap? It's like you have to not only pretend that rap somehow, some way, makes black kids violent, despite white kids listening to it also, but country music or rock and roll isn't violent. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. All the other kids with the pumped up kicks, better run, outrun my gun. Try that in a small town? I apparently don't know how this works.
I got nipples on my titties, big as the end of my thumb. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come home. Why don't you come and shave and dry?
Why are you surprised? Were you not aware of the fact that they could have used parental advisory stickers 100 years ago? The song I just played is Shave 'Em Dry by Lucille Bogan. A cleaner version was originally recorded and written by Ma Rainey, while James Boodle-It Wiggins recorded his own version later. The song was considered dirty blues, its own subgenre of music. Also, this current paragraph that I'm saying contains 2 phrases that are euphemisms for sex. Which 2? Anyways, based on what I'm told, Shave 'Em Dry must have led to so many people making it. Them's the rules. This took place before the welfare state incentivized single parenthood or whatever. And if this is all about black culture, then
Don't be stopped and spoke to girlie, just as old friends often do. And he said, I'm married, but that but, my dear, means you. I love my wife, but oh, you kid.
That's a song about cheating. Men and women stepping out on each other. Infidelity must have skyrocketed after this joint sheet music sold more than 100,000 copies. Am I doing it right or? And I know the message to "Oh you kid" is more subtle by today's standards, but back in the day, a phrase like "Oh you kid" was like saying WAP. And by the way, imagine if Shave 'Em Dry was a rap song created by Cardi B. Same lyrics and everything. Oh my gosh. But hey, neither of these songs must have affected one group in particular at all. In order to try to prove that rap music fuels or accelerates violence, you need a lot of anecdotal evidence. Plus, you need to pretend like, on the other end of this thing, getting rid of rap would decrease violent crime in black communities, or listening to positive, uplifting music will help the murder rate. Hearing Beethoven is going to make you a genius. Beyonce's next album isn't going to make me a cowboy. This music that makes you poop isn't going to... If I presented the link between smoking cigarettes and lung cancer, which is common sense, I would have data as evidence to back it up. In order to believe that any music can lead to criminal behavior and getting locked up, you would have to romanticize pre-1960s America. Don't. You would also have to believe that rap music somehow, some way, only or mostly encourages young black people to respond to gangsta rap with imitating what they see and hear. Not any other race and not any other form of entertainment, including other musical genres or violent movies that include scores. That's music. Did Reservoir Dogs encourage white kids to point guns at one another? Did Candyman make black kids want to cover themselves in bees? Oh, shoot. In The Music Industry Funds Private Prisons, Analyzing Hip-Hop Urban Legend, there's this excerpt. This entitlement to black cultural production while internalizing and asserting anti-black illogic, quote, they don't even love each other, why should we protect/advocate for them, is the true weaponization of hip-hop. So if you aren't aware of what that means, well, you know it when you see it.
Have the people that say white people have no culture ever been to an SEC football game?
Is this what you mean?
I guess their use of hip hop is pure and unadulterated. I ain't see nobody out there big, stupid, fresh like they wrapped up in saran. Nobody's chain was shining hard like it just gave they neck a tan. Not even the rednecks. Depending on where you stand with this topic, you might be under the impression that listening to Beethoven will make your child a genius or something. Some people watching this don't think rappers are smart. Oh, and I should tell you that the biggest reason that prisons have grown so much over the last few decades is that people are being sentenced to longer and longer terms. And evidence shows that longer sentences don't do anything to reduce crime. Additionally, per the Sentencing Project, about 1 in 9 U.S. prisoners are currently serving a life sentence, and that rate has climbed over the past few decades. So not only is it the expansion of life sentences, but it's the rise in life without parole sentences. Only about 6,000 people in prison, less than 1%, are employed by private companies through the federal PIECP program, which requires them to pay at least minimum wage before deductions. In fact, just 8% of all incarcerated people are held in private prisons. The vast majority are in publicly owned prisons and jails. Prisons being factories behind fences that exist to provide companies with a huge slave labor force is kind of a myth, nor are they the source of most prison jobs. The growth of private prisons leveled off at around 2014. You know what else that year gave us? Drill music. Hey, y'all know that rappers are emulating the gangster outlaw image, right? It came from somewhere else. Jay-Z's whole thing used to be Mob Boss. He's got a song called 03 Bonnie and Clyde. His music features references to Dutch Schultz and Butch Cassidy. Beanie Siegel's rap name may emulate Bugsy Siegel. Fabulous called himself William H. Bonney. That's Billy the Kid. I did an episode here a few weeks ago about the Forbes 30 for 30 Summit, where Machine Gun Kelly was a panelist and performer. Where do you think he got his name from? Where do you think crime comes from? Did you notice the theme of the criminals I presented in this video? White? Yes, but they were mostly young, victims of abuse or a lack of mental health resources. They lived in financial upheaval and depressions and recessions. They were fatherless and had access to weapons. The point is, even if there was a secret meeting, there's no way that they met their goals and objectives, whatever they were. We really don't know. I can't stress that enough. I'm more concerned with why people believe in conspiracy theories. Now that's scary. Psychology Today stated that those reasons can be grouped into 3 categories: the desire for understanding and certainty, the desire for control and security, and the desire to maintain a positive self-image. That third one is key because research into conspiracy theories gives some a sense of community. It's like they're holders of privileged knowledge that they didn't look into far enough. So there's that surface level understanding. And then there's the people who don't believe there's a link that goes from slavery to a loophole in the 13th Amendment to black codes, convict leasing, sharecropping, and mass incarceration. Do y'all know where private prisons in America come from? Louisiana, 1844. The penitentiary was ran as a factory using inmates to produce cheap clothes for enslaved people. Ain't that bottom? No matter what I've said and will continue to say, relating violence in black communities to rap music is just going to be this argument that's made from time to time, like it's new every time, instead of dealing with what the real issues at hand are.
A brief history of nobody wants to work anymore. 2024, what has happened to the work ethic in America? Nobody wants to work anymore. 2006, I can't believe the bad luck I've had. Nobody wants to work anymore. 1999, nobody wants to work anymore, Cecil said. They all want to work in front of a computer and make lots of money. 1981, I hired 2 boys to clear the rocks off the land last week, but they just fooled around. They didn't want to work. Nobody wants to work anymore. 1979, nobody wants to work anymore. Disgusted businessman. 1952, I heard somebody say the other day that everybody is getting too darn lazy and nobody wants to work anymore. That's the truth if I ever heard it.
Is it nobody wants to work anymore, or people don't want to work for that person or people or business or corporation in particular? Is it life imitates art, or is this art form specifically an acknowledgement of hood life? When I tell people that hip hop was made in response to violence instead of causing it, they don't believe me, despite showing graphs and reading studies that they recommend. I may as well have made up some story and posted it on the internet like it was some letter given to me. Now, go get some candy, man. I won't, because the common thread among all of them is that they were black rappers. Well, and what Pop Smoke's mother said after his death. Because of gun violence destroys families. It must stop. Y'all know gun violence, America. The same fate that John Lennon, Marvin Gaye, and Selena met. I gotta say that I can't help but notice the number of subscribers the channels that these videos are featured on have. In fact, look at which videos are most popular on Rap Zone and Hip Hop Daily. Danger, destruction, and death. Here's another one, leaving a comment telling Rap Zone that they stole their thumbnail idea from them. Turns out, it's a white guy. Hey, are white people making money off of black bodies by showing violence? On this channel alone, Thang 3000, there are only 3 videos, one of which was 3 million views as of me writing this. That video is entitled, All Rappers That Died 1995 to 2022. Isn't that what rappers do? Give the people what they want? They sell violence, whether or not they're about that life. Seems like there's a market for it in this country. See American history. And my video where I make that clear. Why are they gun-toting in the first place? This is America. The point is, a lot of rappers have died since the pandemic. Too many. However, was this because of music, rhythm and poetry, beats and rhymes, when there was a raging disease killing millions of people, lockdowns, a massive distrust of law enforcement, growing inequity, financial uncertainty, and a proliferation of guns being sold? And we're talking about drill rap?
So tired of hearing that black crime is caused by black culture. For some reason, rap music doesn't make white people steal cars and shoot people. It only works on black people, sarcastically.
Nick Fuentes made a great point himself until racism pulls on these groypers, tug these jerks in a circle. He will go on to say, just another in a long list of excuses. Leftists blame it on racism and poverty. Conservatives blame it on culture and godlessness. Blacks create the same culture from LA to Baltimore, from Haiti to London, from Sudan to South Africa. From prehistory to now, it's race. And I shouldn't even need to address the idea that black people from America to the Caribbean and West Indies to Europe and Africa have or share the same culture. They don't. Furthermore, I want to point out that Middle America landed on culture as being the problem with black communities. Had they been able to prove black pathology through biology or genetics or it being hereditary, they would have gone with that. They can't, but they're trying, I guess. In response to Fuentes' tweets, there's this post that says, black crime being driven by socioeconomics is false. Blacks commit more crimes at all income levels, featuring this chart from Raz Chetty's data, percentage of incarcerated black and white men versus their parents' income percentile. And with this country's history of black codes and the war on drugs, if you think prison and jail sentences equal crimes committed, then I don't know what to tell you. But we'll get back to this later. Also, Andrew Tate said, as what has to be the hardest R in the history of the world, I confirm this to be true. If I listen to the wrong song, I end up human trafficking, and this walking assault on women waiting to happen is kind of making my point. What happens when you hear a theme song, for instance? Does it change your mind or mood to what the music is about? How is that high school basketball team supposed to get buckets when the Home Depot theme is playing? They should be building something, right? At least putting up bricks. Can I get some? I mean, there's no lyrics to that song. However, amateur and professional athletes alike warm up to drill rap all the time to pump themselves up, yet nobody gets murdered. What's the deal? Is that even possible? Could it be due to half of that basketball team being European American? In the early 90s, it was believed that around 80% of the hip hop audience was white. In debunking that alternative fact, this article from Atlanta Black Star states that in 2004, MediaMark Research Incorporated estimated that closer to 60% of rap music consumers were white. Of the approximately 64 million Americans between the ages of 15 and 30, about 73% of them were white. Therefore, white people were underrepresented among the rap audience, and black and brown people were overrepresented. Furthermore, the history of data collection should make you wonder how, in 1991, when there were no devices tracking race in record sales, did they come up with that number of 80%? And why were they allowed to release it as fact? Media corporations needed a marketing tool to justify ad revenue for top 40 stations? That's it. Black and urban stations got less money. Advertising priorities coded for the white man's disposable income. With that said, according to USC, of the top executives at 70 leading music companies, there were only 3 black people and 2 women of color serving as top executives. Meaning, radio stations, live music and concerts, along with the music industry in general, are not only overwhelmingly white, but are primarily the reason why we hear sex, murder, and mayhem romance for the street in this country that made true crime its own genre and made celebrities out of serial killers, murderers, gangsters, and outlaws. Luigi Mangione proved that we love criminals again.
What inspired you to make that song and that video? I was reading New York Post when I was doing the movie Juice, and it was this story. It started out to be this big story about this family who died because they didn't have heat and they left the gas on. Everybody died except for this girl. She moved in with her cousins, second cousins. She started dating her second cousin. He got her pregnant. Nobody noticed she was pregnant. I was like, dang. And it was over a week. But the story kept getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. And I was like, this is like very important, more important than Juice. To me, it was a bigger story than Juice.
How you feel about Tupac on or off the record lets me know what rap music means to you. If Machiavelli is Brenda's Got a Baby, Keep Your Head Up, and Dear Mama, and not I Get Around, Hit 'Em Up, or Hail Mary, and vice versa, then you have a singular view of his verses. Tupac, just like rap music in general, was and is more than just one thing. It seems like millions deem Tupac to be a peaceful prophet who deserves to have college scholarships named in his honor. To others, he's a problematic poet who didn't have a rap sheet until after he became famous. There should be many more in the middle, but all of these people were his audience at some point. Perception and perspective are at play. Again, I don't know how this works. Do you listen to rap prior to violent criming somebody? Is it being played during, or is it like a dam breaking and bursting open due to an overflow of hip hop in your head and in your heart? Was the person who shot and killed Tupac inspired by his music?
The beef that didn't make it through was Pac and Big.
Yeah.
I wasn't really prepared for that, like somebody actually dying, and they didn't really die because of that beef. They died because of extenuating circumstance.
That was rapper and actor Ice-T. Newsweek quoted him from the early 90s as saying, "People always ask me, how do you feel about dancing for the white people? You dance for them and they cheer. And then they walk out of here and they just talk about N-words. At this point, man, I can't really care." And you may be saying to yourself, yeah, they want our culture, not our people. Plus, no matter what, will always be N-words to them. Or, wait, is Ice-T allowed to use the N-word? Okay. Before the gangster rap era, we have to pretend like rap was one thing done one way. Run DMC, whose song Hit 'Em Hard was used in the study that I've been talking about and considered it violent, by the way, wasn't Eric B. and Rakim. Curtis Blow wasn't Kool Moe Dee, and the Cold Crush wasn't the Sugar Hill Gang. And you know what? Someone out there is longing to go back to this.
Hip hop, you know how we do it. We get out on the block, start break dancing. We hanging out with our friends, shaking hands. We do the dance. Go to the ball and shoot some hoop.
Okay.
What was the homicide rate when hip hop sounded like that? And what were the conditions which led to the creation of rap? Or did rap create those conditions? I still don't know how this hip hop to homicide thing works. And I've talked about it in 5 previous videos. Peep the playlist. Either way, none of this is new. The hip hop amplifies, exasperates, fuels homicide narrative has been a thing for almost 4 decades now. Yet, conservatives were saying the same things about other genres of music that black people created.
We came along, the whole thing changed. All of a sudden, we became a no-no. What is this? This is devil music. It wasn't anything that we were doing so wrong. It was just that people were so slow
You were black.
to accept change.
You was black.
Tell him again. Will you tell him, man, again?
You was black, and they didn't want that black image over their kids. You was a hero.
Well, see, but
and your kids was looking up to you, and they didn't want their kids looking
What
up
kids?
at
What kids?
They didn't want the white kids looking up at this big old greasy black guy
Preacher.
out of Georgia,
Tell 'em about
out of Mississippi, or out of Chicago. They want their kids to see a little smooth white boy looking pretty and on duty and looking Rudy, you know. And so here's a black guy out there singing and screaming and beaming and screaming. They said, no, no, no.
Help me out, please. What is it called when somebody proves the opposite of the point they were trying to make? Or maybe not even a complete contradiction, just, for example, when a man stares at another man's body and mannerisms in order to question what kind of sex they have and with who before trying to out them as gay? Or how about people who want to ban trans folks from certain restrooms because they think trans communities are going to attack there, but it's trans people who are assaulted there? Or groomer claims coming from people that are the actual PDF files. There's a word or phrase for this, but I don't know what it is. Not that one definition or description fits all those things, but they say that when you point the finger, 4 are pointed back at you. Well, they also say that the thumb isn't a finger. Plus, it's kind of pointing somewhere else. And they must not be pointing their fingers right. But to be fair, I have gotten this whole episode wrong up until this point. Rap does cause violent crime.
Looking out the window, and I said, "You're not gonna kill me, you son of a bitch," and I shot.
In his own words and in riveting detail,
It wasn't just my life I was worried about, no.
admitted killer Michael Dunn recreates for the jury the moments that led to the shooting death of 17-year-old Jordan Davis.
Michael Dunn, 47 years old, was convicted of first-degree murder in the death of 17-year-old Jordan Davis and 3 counts of attempted second-degree murder for shooting at the other teens in the car with Davis. Dunn argued that he thought he saw the barrel of a gun inside the car and was in fear for his life when he shot up the SUV. The prosecution said that the threat Dunn, a white man, perceived from the group of black teens was only in his imagination. Dunn fired 10 shots in 3 short bursts, striking Davis 3 times. The teens were unarmed.
Dunn's fiancée testified the 47-year-old software developer had this reaction.
And what did the defendant say?
Oh, I hate that thug music.
Rower went inside the store to buy a bottle of wine. Seconds later, gunshots.
Oh my God, somebody's shooting. Somebody's shooting out their car.
Dunn claimed that he didn't call it thug music. He referred to it as rap crap or something like that. Additionally, police in Peoria, Arizona are investigating after a 17-year-old teenager was stabbed to death. The man accused told police he felt threatened because the teen had been listening to rap music. Adams stated that rap music made him feel unsafe because in the past, he has been attacked by people, blacks, Hispanics, and Native American, who listen to rap music. Adams further stated people who listen to rap music are a threat to him and the community, according to police reports. Adams had just been released from state prison 2 days prior to the murder, according to the Arizona Department of Corrections. Perhaps rap music does cause violence, just not in the way some hoped it would or did. And when reading about the effects of violence in mass media, I came across this article which reported that 1 of 2 boys, both 15 years old at the time, accused of plotting to kill students and teachers, fantasized about being a natural-born killer, as in the movie made in 1994. The BBC said the prosecution had already alleged the boys considered Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who carried out the shooting at Columbine High School, to be their heroes and wanted to emulate their actions. So, who or what inspired the Columbine killers? And the plot of natural-born killers? Not to be dismissive, although Movies, TV, comic books, and video games have also been cited as the cause of violent crime as well. But rap music getting the brunt of this is simply anti-blackness, plain and simple. And it distracts from what actually correlates with violent crime.
The thing is, on this chart, if there was a correlation between the number of crimes that people commit and their skin color, but it discounted income, then this R number would be negligible. It would be super close to 0. That's not the case. And according to the data, people in poverty are much more likely to commit crime, no matter what their skin color is. Some groups make slightly less money compared to the number of crimes they commit, and some groups make slightly more, but the differences are negligible. None of these groups commit more or less crime based on the dollar amount that they earn than any other group, at least not enough to throw off this correlation.
Distractions from what drives homicide in America, access to firearms, a lack of access to education, mental health resources, housing, upward mobility, available blue-collar labor, and so on. And I'm not saying rap isn't a problem, but it's not the problem. Fixing all of the issues I just cataloged wouldn't get rid of rap, and honestly, hip-hop is full of fakes who want to sell true crime and murder mystery featuring snitching on themselves without saying spoiler alert first, because these United States have proven to love that. And they would know that if they respected rap as an art form and rappers as artists.
And somebody please correct me, call me out if this is a reach myself. But I feel like the inability to give credit to black artists that have really sophisticated and complicated wordplay and metaphor and all that stems from the inability to acknowledge black intelligence. One of my favorite artists right now is JID or JID. And if you listen to a single song of his and read the lyrics, you are dumbfounded at his ability to connect things and create these metaphors and these triple and quadruple entendres. Like you think he did that by accident?
And hey, rap influences people. We know this. I probably should have said this earlier in the video for those that are going to check out halfway through it because they don't like what I'm saying or how I'm saying it. I've told this story before, but when I was out for a run one day, Power by Kanye West came on and I started sprinting. Jazz, rock and roll, comic books, and video games have similar influence, but they may or may not have been blamed for a lot too. I'm betting there's a much stronger correlation between removal of lead from gasoline and paint and the decrease in inner city violence than any effect of rap music or hip hop. It's kind of weird how the nightly news displaying black crime, TV shows and movies that have musical scores, by the way, showing violence, these videos on this here platform don't in turn cause violence. At least not the same amount as gangster rap, not as much. If they do, they don't get the same attention as rap. There was this experiment from 2003 called exposure to violent media, which I've talked about before, but evidently I missed an important detail. See, exposure to violent media suggests that songs with violent lyrics increase aggression-related thoughts and emotions, and this effect is directly related to the violence in the lyrics. Even the humorous violent songs increase aggressive thoughts, they said. The thing about that is, nobody got killed in this study. None of the 500 college students who participated murdered anyone after, listening to Shoot 'Em Up by Cypress Hill or Jerk Off by Tool. And if somebody says, well, if guns and weapons were available, they might be missing the point. So look, those researchers aren't saying that rap music, for example, is the cause of violence in black communities in particular. It's how people perceive their work and work like theirs. Gangsta rap promotes violence in the black community from violence in the media, but I was still reading the abstract when it said, although gangsta rap as a cause of violent behavior by its listeners cannot be proven, there is certainly a correlation. Okay. And going back to the study I mentioned earlier right quick, it investigated precursors to aggression rather than aggressive behavior itself. And the authors admit more research is needed to identify the short-term and long-term effects of violent song lyrics. Okay, the Eagles of Lucy was all around me, so I went running for answers. And I found this article, The Most Surprising Rap Music Violence Statistics and Trends in 2024. And it includes conclusions from polls, surveys, and studies, like in a 2021 survey by Statista, 42% of American respondents aged 30 to 44 years old said that rap music has a negative influence on society. The FBI reported a link between gangs and rap music in the 1990s, with the gangster rap lyrics promoting violence and anti-establishment attitudes, and a study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that violent crime increased on dates when songs from violent genres like rap were released. But then I scrolled to the bottom of that page and I found frequently asked questions. Here's one right here, and I read to others. What role does the media play in amplifying the perception of violence in rap music? The media often sensationalizes and selectively reports on incidents of violence involving rap artists or those connected to the rap industry, contributing to a skewed public perception that rap music is inherently violent. Does exposure to violent themes in rap music lead to aggressive behavior and attitudes among listeners? Some research indicates that exposure to violent themes in rap music may lead to increased aggression and aggressive attitudes in listeners, but the influence of other variables, such as personal experiences and values, should also be taken into consideration. Speaking of, personal experience is what dominates this space, and takes like this.
When you live in Beverly Hills, rap music don't affect you, right? When you live in a gated community or you live in somewhere above the poverty line, you live in middle class America or you live in the upper echelons of America, what they say in these rap songs don't resonate with you. It sound good, it's cute, it's got a good beat, it's cool, it's trendy to you. When you live in the hood, this is like the gospel.
That was Officer Tatum, ex-policeman, current conservative influencer, and brother who wouldn't have asked Rose for the keys, saying that, in his experience, convenient, the upper echelons aren't impacted by hip-hop. And I'll get back to that clip later, but it's good to know that rap has nothing to do with this. Man, the YouTube algorithm must think not good things about me. So here is Officer Tatum asking a crowd to name a country singer who's been shot to death. And like, come on, just because he couldn't name them doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Also, he could have gone with this. I don't know if this counts. Before going on a mini rant about 5 rappers who have been shot and killed, pretending like black people can't blame white people for stuff while dealing with violence in black communities at the same time. Okay then.
These slip-on orthopedic shoes are built for middle-aged and elderly men. Once you try them, you won't want anything else.
While dealing with violence in black communities at the same time. Okay then, if that's the qualifier, some communities bet not say anything about black on black crime.
When you grow up without a father, that is your role model. Young Jeezy, these rappers who are continuously talk about drugs, talk about crime, talk about jail time, talk about glorification of spending time in prison. Like, that becomes your role model, man. And I think that we need to start addressing this, and we need to do it now.
I know who Young Jeezy is. Does that help? Probably made it worse. What we need to start addressing, and we need to do it now, is rap music. Like it hasn't been addressed or is not currently being addressed. As for the material conditions that lead to fatherlessness though, and rap for that matter, not sure of what Officer Tatum has to say about that. Rap was and is a reaction to violence, not the cause of it. When you control for poverty and segregated communities, concentrated poverty, the disparity in violent crime between white and black communities almost disappears. You're back. Wow. Look at you. Traveling to and from a time before the family moved, I had braces and my editing and color grading got better, and I was a freelancer at some points then when I used to close out my content with "My architect knows Japanese," which I never said on this channel and was a wink and a nod to hip hop heads. You know, looking back at that news anchor sign off, it reminds me of how many comments I got from those who assumed that I actually had an architect and thought I was just flexing. And others feeling like they couldn't look up where those song lyrics, that's what they are, came from. It's those types of people telling me that hip hop is the cause of violent crime in black communities. And don't get me wrong, there's stuffs that we gotta work out. This tweet talks about a rapper going on a radio freestyle platform and was told that his episode couldn't drop because of what he rapped about: politics and Palestine. The very next day, he said, in everyday sense, it's been niggas on there talking about killing niggas and selling dope, and the host just nods along to it and smiles. That's a problem. However, It does show that rappers are rhyming about solutions as well. Rap lyrics are actual tools to help teach and educate and motivate kids to learn. Furthermore, lyrics are being used in trials. Studies suggest that juries are more likely to convict if they are shown song lyrics from a defendant that are considered to be violent. This study stated that those who were shown the lyrics were more likely to think the person had committed the murder. The dumbest timeline. Don't even get me started about what is and isn't considered ghetto. America doesn't dislike death and destruction. It detests black people. I'll leave you with this. Most societies in the West are not opposed to violence. The oppressor is only opposed to violence when the oppressed talks about using violence against the oppressor. Then the question of violence is raised as the incorrect means to attain one's end. Y'all, Lil Jon does meditations and positive affirmations. A rapper did a mini concert for a child diagnosed with autism. Rap music has, can, and will bring people together. Why do you think I named my channel this way? Thank you for watching. We gonna be all right. 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 Ooh, there's another one.